Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Doechii, and specifically what Doechii learned in doing the 12-week program, The Artist's Way, the kind of hidden energetic secrets that are within this book that she applied to her life to be able to live her dreams, win her Grammy, and become the icon that she is today. By the end of this video, you're going to understand on a really deep, fundamental, metaphysical level what the energetic shifts are that happen in these practices, what the energetic shifts are that I am assuming I can observe that Doechii made, and how you can apply them to your life so that you can birth your dreams into reality. And the reason I know that this is not woo-woo and delusional is because I've used these principles to birth my own dream reality. I went from working a 9-to-5 job, living in a small town, living paycheck to paycheck in a toxic relationship, hating my life, feeling so stuck and lost like I had no purpose or nothing to even aspire for, to living my dream life, working in my soul aligned business, making money like I breathe air, in my soul aligned relationship, living in my dream city. And I never, ever thought that this level of just living the dream was possible until I learned the fundamental principles that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So if I can do it, if I can teach people to do it and they apply it to their lives, people from all different backgrounds, and they can do it too, that means you can do it. This is a formula. It's just a perspective shift. The way that you've been living is not the way that it has to be. And if anyone else can do it, even if we look at Doechii, we put people on a pedestal, and yes, she's amazing and she's talented, but if you look back on that 12-week program that she documented on YouTube, you can see she's human just like us. Yes, she's got an amazing talent for music and she's very creative, but we're all creative beings. Fundamentally, we're all children of God. So that's what I'm going to teach you today, is how to tap into that part of yourself so that you can tap into God's supply in your life, like I do, like I teach my clients to do, and like Doechii did. I want to zoom it all the way out first, and I want us to just think about the fact that everything that exists comes from God. You don't actually create anything. And I know that sounds a little bit disempowering, but it's really very empowering, because right now you might be in a situation where you feel like you're stuck in a bit of a loop of things that are possible and logical and make sense for you. And you might have a dream that like is all the way over here, or you have an idea of a life that's all the way over here that doesn't fall within your loop and it feels like it's impossible for you. Well, you don't have to go out and create that dream. You are not the one doing the creating. Everything already exists. God created everything. It says this in Genesis, in the Bible. God is the one who creates everything. That's what the word abracadabra means. As God speaks, he creates. It's God that does the creating. It is us that does the aligning. So we can create, if you want to call it that, because it's the best way to describe it, from what God has already created, essentially. But we don't have to create things from scratch. And you don't have to keep hustling, forcing, trying to make things happen in your world when you access the God within you. And that's what Doechii learned in doing this program. She learned how to trust and follow the God within her. And I posted a reel on my Instagram that really went viral, and it resonated with so many people, and I know why it did. It's because we know, as people who are kind of tapped into their spirituality, as people who are tapped into their creativity, you can feel the link between those two things. You can feel that your creative essence is the godlike essence being reflected within your being. And I was so happy to open this book and realize that that is what Julia talks about in this book. And that is what Doechii was applying to her life. So in that reel, she says, I clipped like 3 different videos together from 3 different times so you could see her progress on her journey. And 5 years ago, Doechii was saying, I always had this feeling inside me to just do certain things. And I know that that voice and that feeling is God. And I'm following it and I don't know where it's taking me and I feel crazy. And I think a lot of people resonate with that, just having that desire and that feeling. But you can see as the years went by, there was an interview of Doechii doing, she was doing a Rolling Stone interview. And she said for that mixtape that she made that won her the Grammy, She said, I don't care anymore. I'm not having any more hands in the pot. I'm not worrying about what the label thinks. I'm not worrying about what critics think. I have made the decision to depend on the God within me. And I'm going all in on that. And she spent 30 days in the studio recording that mixtape on nothing but her feelings, her creativity, her faith, her intuition, and not listening to logic or anything outside of that. And that's when she was able to essentially channel from the divine this work, this body of work, this body of art that ended up being so novel and so beautiful and so new and so powerful. It won a Grammy, and obviously it's just exploded all over the world, and it's resonated with so many people. So what she learned in this book was to depend on the God within her. Every single one of us has a God within. You are not excluded from that category. Every person has an inner well of creative power that is connected to the divine. And that's what's so wonderful about this book. And that's what's so wonderful about watching Doechii go through that experience and being able to watch that on YouTube, which if you haven't and you are a creative or an artist of some kind, I highly recommend that you do that because it's so inspiring, because you can see she was able to create something on a level that was like non-human, so new, so amazing, so out of this world extraordinary, because she wasn't thinking like a human. She wasn't thinking from her logic. She was thinking from her God creative self. There are so many successful people and creatives who have done this program and have gone on to birth amazing things, like things that cannot be explained with logic. You know, they just came from the ether. So I'm going to read you some of the basic principles that are literally on page 3 of The Artist's Way that tie in with everything I'm saying. So Julia talks about creativity, and she says, when we open ourselves to exploring our creativity, we open ourselves to God. Creativity is God's gift to us, and using our creativity is our gift back to God. We are ourselves creations, and we in turn are meant to continue creativity by being creative ourselves. So you're getting my point here. Your link to the divine is your inner creativity. The problem is we're programmed from the moment that we arrive into this physical earth. We are programmed to be logical. And the issue is when you're overly identified with your logical self and you're overly attached to being logical, you cannot access so easily that creative well, that inner artist, that God within you, that intuitive self who can access unlimited resources and possibilities. So when you're in your logic, you're in limitation. When you're in your God self, your creative well of power, you are in the zone of the unlimited, of just infinite possibilities, because that is God. God is unlimited, and that aspect is available within you. There is only separation by virtue of us descending into this material plane. And that separation was born by virtue of us gaining an ego, basically. So when we descended down here, when we basically separated from the all that is, the infinite intelligence, God, the source, we had to come into an individual form to experience this physical, dense, polarized reality. Whatever reasons, whatever you believe in for that, for the expansion of our souls, for the expansion of light, for the expansion of the universe, that's what happened when we came here. And in order for us to have this experience as an individual entity, we needed to form an ego. The ego self was birthed by us, by virtue of us coming here into this material plane. And that is what created your dual nature. That is what created your logical side, your ego self, and the part that you probably identify with. So there's a split in the self. You've got your logic side and you've got your creative, intuitive side. Your kind of more divine, ethereal nature and your logical, rooted, grounded nature. Both of those are parts of you. Both of those are necessary and valid. And they're actually, if you look even deeper, the logical side of you is your masculine energy. and your kind of feeling, intuitive, creative side is your feminine energy. In order for you to create and manifest something anew, you need both of those energies. Even like on a molecular level, feminine and masculine energy exists. They are necessary. The two poles, the law of gender and hermeticism as well, states that the two poles are necessary for anything to be created, for anything to be in existence. Gender exists on every single plane of everything that exists, okay? From the tiniest molecule to the biggest, densest form of matter. Gender exists, masculine and feminine energy. So gender exists within you in the form of your logical side and your intuitive side, okay? But you need both. The issue is, since you've come here, society has programmed you to fully 100% identify with your logical nature, with your ego self, with your earthly, physical, rational, analytical self. And even if you look at a diagram of the mind, the brain, you can see, is split, the left and right hemisphere of the mind. You've got your left hemisphere, which is your logic, your analysis. You've got your right hemisphere, which is your intuition, your imagination, your creativity. This dual aspect of our being is also confirmed in the Bible. In John 21:6, the story of the disciples in the boat. I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, guys, but it's directly relevant. They cast their nets to the left side of the boat and there was no fish. And Jesus said, cast your nets to the right. And when they cast the nets to the right, there were so many fish that they couldn't pull the net up. And what the hidden meaning of that story is, essentially your mind is the boat in that story. And when you cast your nets to the left hemisphere side of your brain, to your logical, analytical self, you will not draw up that which you desire. But when you cast your nets to the right, which is your imaginative, intuitive, creative self, you will have so many resources, you will have so much abundance that you won't even be able to pull the net in. It's going to be an overflow of resources. Why? Because to the right is where you access God's supply, because that is how you access the God within. The kingdom is within you. And religion, institutionalized religion, has led us to believe that it's a man in the sky and it's external to us and that we are powerless. We must bow at the feet of this external deity and that we as mere mortals have no power. When actually you've got God within you. You can access that state within you. Christ is a level of consciousness. Christ is a level of consciousness that can be accessed from within. It's the highest level of consciousness achieved in a human body. Why? Because when Christ descended into this material world, he recognized that he was not this logical, three-dimensional being. He recognized his true identity as above and beyond that left hemisphere ego self. He recognized his true identity as one with God. And that is what allowed him to have a higher state of awareness and a higher state of perspective to be able to rise above the suffering and limitation of this material world and perform miracles, okay? So if you want to perform miracles in your life, you have to start thinking from that right hemisphere creative God within you. That is where you access unlimited possibilities. If you're thinking in logic constantly, you're going to be tapping into limitations constantly, okay? The reason this was so aligned for me to speak about right now is because I literally hosted a 3-day event on how to let go of control and forcing in logic and how to lean into your intuition and the God within in my community right when I found Doechii and came across her and the book, The Artist's Way. And it confirmed everything that I had studied in the religious text, in all the readings I was doing, in all the coaching and all the results that my clients were getting in this world in applying these principles. Everything tied together and confirmed what I now believe to be truth, which is if you want to access miracles, if you want to access God's supply in your life, you have to let go of logic. You have to let go and let God, as in let the God within you be expressed. You have access to everything. And I want to empower you right now and remind you that no matter how bad your life is, you have access to everything. If another human being can do it, if Doechii can do it, if people can get to these heights and create these magical dream things, they are no different to you. They have just tapped into the God within. And because you are a human being and you are also created by God and you are also one with all that is, you can do the same thing. Nothing is off limits to you. You do not lack access to anything. The only thing you lack is awareness as to what you can access. And the reason that you lack awareness is because you're blocked by your logic. So let's get into how you can get around that logic self. Essentially, this whole book and all the practices in here, especially she has a practice called morning pages, is to get around that logical side of you, that ego side of you, so you can access the God within. And she calls that ego self, that logical self, your sensor, which I really like that name. So she calls it, instead of saying like your ego self and your creative self or your God within, she calls it your sensor and your artist, okay? But it's all the same thing. It's your masculine, feminine. It's your left hemisphere, it's your right hemisphere. It's your logic, it is your creativity. It's your sensor, it's your artist, right? My brain is literally also, I don't know if this is going to be too much information, but it's your conscious mind, it's your subconscious mind, it's your thinking, it's your feeling, it's your analyzing, it's your flow state being in your body, okay? So just keep that in mind. So what Julia explains in this book is really, really interesting, because essentially every practice within this book and every practice that Doechii did was to detach and let go from over-identification with the inner sensor so that you could listen and trust your God within or your artist within. So your sensor, your logical self, is going to keep trying to bash your inner artist or your God within or that intuitive voice. And it's going to make like noises and make words like, that's delusional, that doesn't make sense, who do you think you are, that's not logical, that's stupid, you're going to run out of money. It's going to keep instilling you with limiting beliefs and fear-based beliefs. The thing is, you've learned those off other people. So anything that your sensor has to say, anything that your logical self has to say, is a fear-based belief that it picked up since you arrived here in this earth. But the things that your intuitive self has to say, they can't be explained. And how you know, by the way, which is which, your intuition is a feeling. It's like the one that comes first, and then your logic, your sensor, is the one that comes second to talk yourself out of it. And it's loud, and it is critical, and it is trying to make things make sense. Your sensor blinds you as to your inherently godly nature. And your purpose in this life is to overcome that sensor, and it is a tall order. So like, even if we look at Doechii, like, credits to Doechii here, because it's a very difficult thing to do. And this is why I literally coach people on this, and it takes 6 to 12 weeks to really get people shifting, because we're so attached, we're so programmed to think in logic and scarcity and limitation and lack that it just feels so stupid and counterintuitive to think any differently. So I'm going to give you the practices, but I want to ask you, how much is it worth to you? How much is it worth to you? Are you actually willing to show up and do that inner work? Because I don't think people realize, as a 21, 22-year-old, how impressive and how rare it is to actually show up and give your all to a program like this for 12 weeks. Because most of us lack focus. We're so distracted, our attention is in a million different places, that we can't even sit down and commit to something like this. And I need you to zoom it out and ask yourself, is it worth it paying that price? The price of never birthing what you came here to birth, what you came here to channel from the divine. Because every single person came here to channel something unique and specific from the divine. But the more you stay attached to your old habits, to your old comforts, to your old identity, and to your old logic, you're never going to be able to actually birth that thing into creation. You can keep going, living in your logic, identified with your ego, forcing things, trying to force things into reality, holding on for fear, holding on for comfort, or you can let go of all of this and align with the God within and birth something really magical into your reality. Which is it going to be? Because it's going to require a commitment and it's going to require a decision in order for you to be able to let go of this. Because honestly, this left hemisphere, this logical, this sensor side is addictive. It's comfortable and it's very appealing. And you need to be stronger than it. You need to make the decision to be stronger than it. You need to make the decision to become stronger than it and to exercise detaching from it. Even if we look in the power of Kabbalah, this is going to go kind of deep here, but in that book, Kabbalah, by the way, is esoteric interpretations of the Zohar and the Torah. It's Judaism in an esoteric sense. And in that book, they talk about when we are descended here onto this physical plane, we are faced with an opponent in this life because we're here to basically generate lasting light and fulfillment. And the way we do that is by overcoming adversity. And we won't have adversity unless we have an opponent. What's the point in winning a game when there's nobody that you're up against? Winning would have no meaning. So we were given an opponent in this life, and that opponent is that ego-driven voice within us. And even going back thousands and thousands of years ago, that opponent is called Satan. That is the Antichrist. That voice within you is the Antichrist. That logical voice, that programming that's trying to keep you trapped and limited and small and thinking so small and thinking in the lower vibration emotions on the scale of consciousness, that is the Antichrist because it's against you reaching higher consciousness, Christ level of consciousness. Overcoming that voice is how you remember that you are infinite and you can access everything. And anything else that you're believing in is a lie. All of this suffering, all of this limitation, all of this lack, it's a lie. And that lie is too heavy for you to keep carrying. But in order to get around that lie, you have to make a commitment to yourself to let go of that censor, that logical voice. And that requires focus, it requires discipline and commitment. It requires these things. That's why this is a 12-week program. That's why my coaching package is a 12-week transformation package. You have to stay committed and disciplined because if you've gone whatever age you are, if you've gone 20 years, 30 years, your whole life being fully identified with the censor within you, it's going to take commitment and discipline to unlearn that. You're going to have to grieve that censor. You're going to have to get comfortable with stepping into the unknown, which is into your creativity, into your intuition. Letting go of that old identity. It's not an easy thing. You're going to have to mourn the parts of you that thought that that was who you were, right? So it requires strength and commitment and discipline. But I'm going to tell you right now, as someone who's walked that walk, it's worth it. And as someone who's helped people through that process, it's been worth it 100% for every single person who's actually done it. It's been worth it. Nobody who's actually committed to that journey, to letting go of that logical censor, ego-driven voice and thinking limitation, has come out the other side of that and thought, oh, I'd love to go back. Every single person has said, I can't even believe that I thought that way, that I believed that that's all that was. I would never, ever, ever go back there. I even, like in the Bible, it says, wisdom crieth in the streets. So the answers are literally looking for you, but they can't find you because you're so blinded by your pain, by your ego's attachments to your pain, that you can't see the answers. I always give this example, like your literal dream client, your best friend, your dream partner could be around the corner, but if you're not in the energy to meet them and be open to receiving them, if your level of consciousness is so attached to suffering and pain and something not being possible for you, it won't be possible for you. They'll be right there, but there's a blindfold on because you're in your logic. You can't see what's possible, you can only see the limitation. Okay, so I literally have an example of this. When I was living back in Ireland a couple of years ago, I was in the lower level of consciousness, and I was trying and hustling and trying to get out. And I always thought, oh, there's nobody here that like understands me. There's nobody here that gets me. There's nobody here that, I just started my marketing business. There's nobody here that understands business or who can help me. And that's how I was thinking. I was thinking in limitation. I was thinking in logic. I was thinking in the information I had been given ever since I had been born. Oh, because I haven't met anyone yet who's like this, then it's not possible. That's what logic will tell you. Logic will only tell you what it knows based off what it's experienced physically, which is really illogical because you know that every experience can exist, okay? So that's what I was thinking because that's all that I experienced. And it wasn't until recently, I moved to Spain about a year ago, and like literally a week ago, I had dinner with a group of Irish people who were so incredibly aligned with the way that I think, and they were so open-minded and they were so business-minded. And it was all the type of people that I said didn't exist in Ireland a couple of years ago. They existed. They were right there. I just wasn't in the right energy to perceive them because I was in my logic, and logic can only tell you information that it knows based off what is experienced. But if your desire, if your dream life is on another timeline and it's got nothing to do with anything that you've experienced, your logic cannot give you the answers. It can't do it. So you have to stop going to it for answers and advice. It's impossible for it to know how. And one of the biggest dream killers is when you get an intuitive feeling for something, when you get a desire for something, and it lights your body up and you think that would be so fun and amazing. And you let sensor, logic voice come in and say, well, no, that doesn't make sense because of this and because of this, and this could happen. That is the biggest. Do you know how many creations and how many dreams that would have been so cool and so amazing and so divine and would have accessed so much of God's, would have provided so much of God's supply for the people that birthed them? So many things would be in existence if it weren't for that sensor voice. The sensor is here to kill your creations, okay? And when you take a novel or an original thought or idea to your logic, you best believe the only thing that logic is going to do is kill it. If it doesn't align with what you've experienced physically before, it's going to kill it. Because listen, that's the whole purpose of the logical side of your brain. It's your survival. It is rooted only in physically what's happened and what's happening physically right in front of you. But that's not where you're going to create your dream life. You cannot create your dream life from your survival part of your brain. You have to create your dream life from your intuitive, imaginative, visionary, God within, that part of your brain. And there's so many quotes in The Artist's Way that confirm this. And I love that we have a living testimony in Doechii. She went through this process, she learned everything here, she studied it, regimented, dedicated, she took notes, and all the quotes in here back up all the energetic stuff that's in the Bible, everything that I'm sharing with you. We have been taught to believe that negative equals realistic and positive equals unrealistic. To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong. There's even a quote here from Carl Jung: the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. What more can I say about that? Okay, let's get into how you can actually shift out of your logic sensor into your intuitive, creative God within. All right, first one up. Be still and know that I am God. Be still. You guys, the freaking clues, we were giving a manual in the Bible. Like we have all the information there. You just don't want to do it because it's a little bit uncomfortable. But be freaking still and know that I am God. So you can know that you are God when you are still. I.e., when you slow down and sit down and your brain waves slow down, you enter the realm where time does not exist. You enter your subconscious mind, which is connected to the quantum field, which is connected to the God within you. That is your center of creation. When you are still, you access the God within. If you could do one thing from this video, I'm not going to even tell you to do morning pages. That's what Julia recommends to access the God within, because it gets the censor ranting and gets all those thoughts out of the way so you can find that stillness in your mind. I'm not going to tell you to do that. If you could just meditate for 10 to 20 minutes every morning when you open your eyes, your whole life would change. Going back to looking even at the brain, I'm trying to tie in neuroscience and everything here so you get the full picture of what's going on. The brain, we're constantly active in the conscious mind, which is actually your logical survival mind. It's where your sensor lives. It's the one that we're all identified with. When you meditate, your brain waves slow down. They flow out of your conscious mind and into your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is your intuitive self. It is your feeling self. It is your non-thinking self. From there, you enter your true essence, which is your observer state. Not your identity or your ego self. You are your observer self. When you can teach yourself that it is actually just safe to sit down and close your eyes and let go of thinking in your conscious mind, you will be able to do that in your life. When you can do it in meditation, you can do it in your life. So one of the biggest issues that people struggle with, and this was the main theme of the challenge that I ran in my community, is releasing control, relinquishing control over things in your life that you cannot control, letting go of fear, letting go of survival mode, so you can relax into your body and enter flow state and really start to create really magical results in your life. So the easiest way to see if you're in survival mode and if you're really attached to control and forcing is to just sit down and close your eyes and see how difficult it is for you to let go of your thoughts, let go of thinking. And I'm not saying thinking altogether, but I'm saying your habitual neural patterns, your habitual thoughts, your attachments to the external world, your attachment to the same old thought patterns. How difficult is it for you to let go of those? Because that's going to directly be proportionate to how difficult it is for you to let go of things in your external world. To let go of what people think of you, to let go of outcomes, to let go of everything that you're worrying about and forcing in your world that's actually blocking your blessings. As within, so without. If you can sit down in meditation and let go of your logic, ego, conscious, survival mode thinking, what happens essentially, basically it takes a few days to be able to do that, but once you do it consistently, you'll get it. And what happens eventually is you'll have a moment where you finally kind of release your attachment to those thoughts and to those incessant, constant survival mode thoughts, and your brainwaves slow down and you relax into your subconscious mind, and you realize that it's safe for you to do that. And you realize that part of you, that conscious thinking ego part of you, is not all that is. It's not all that exists. And that's what Julia does with morning pages as well. That's what that whole exercise accomplishes. When you do morning pages 3 a day for 12 weeks, you begin to observe that ego part of you that's just yapping away all the time. And then you begin to realize that that's just a part of you and it's not all of who you are. And there's a greater part of you. There's an inner essence that is the observer. Okay? So that's what you get when you meditate. And when you learn to really, it feels like you're just letting go. When you see that you can do that, like it's almost like before you do that, you're so scared. If you let go of your attachment to the external and control and trying to figure things out all the time, it's like, oh my God, well then nothing's going to figure itself out. And what? You're blocking God's blessings when you're in that. It's not your job to figure everything out. And when you can teach yourself that in meditation and you can be still and you let go, you realize that it's safe and it's actually better. And you're able to access solutions. God will send you solutions. The divine will come through you and you'll be able to hear and see solutions that clinging on and trying to figure out would never give you, that your logic would never figure out. Okay, so you get out of your own way when you meditate because you access that intuitive God within. All right, if you want more on that, you can watch the replay of the challenge in the community, because I go a lot deeper and I give you exercises on how to do that, okay? I could go on about that all day, but I need to move on. So the second way you can start accessing the God within is by letting go of your reactions. We are all master creators, master alchemists. And how you alchemize something that has just been a pattern, that has been on autopilot, you have to change how you react to it. Your ego was created, your ego self was created by everything that you have experienced since you came to this physical world. So your logical side of your brain thinks in terms of words and like it knows facts and spoken language and physical things. So when you are allowing external circumstances to change how you're feeling, how you're responding, and how you're believing, that is you being created by the external world, and that is you acting out of your ego self. Your inherently godlike nature is being shoved in the dark when you do that. So when something happens and you allow yourself to be created by that in terms of how you respond and how you react on autopilot, on impulse, you're acting in your ego logical self. You are not acting as a God in your life, because if you were, you would be creating your circumstances rather than you being created by your circumstances. So if you want a shortcut how to access your inner creator and the God within you, you have to start reacting differently. You have to be acting bigger than your problems. You alchemize something in your life when something happens and you're able to take a step back from it and say, well, how do I want to respond to this? How can I rise above this and react differently to this? Your ego thrives. Your ego is fed by you reacting impulsively constantly to the external world and external stimuli. So you must starve that part of you by taking your power back and refusing to continue to be created by your external circumstances. You change how you are responding automatically, emotionally, and you instead say, well, how can I react differently? That is how you activate your God within. Okay, the last tip I have for you is to start prioritizing feeling over thinking. So this is kind of counterintuitive, but let me explain. You need masculine and feminine energy to bring something into creation. You need masculine. You need to take action. I'm not saying sit on your ass and expect everything to fall into your lap. If you know me, if you know the way I coach, that ain't it. I am tough love. I am get up off your ass and go make it happen. God gave you intuition. God gave you imagination, but God also gave you arms and legs. Okay, God gave you masculine and feminine. You are masculine and feminine energy. No matter your gender, you have both of those within you. Those powers are always at play, the yin and the yang. And in order to really create something new into this world, from God's supply, of course, you need both. The issue is most of us are yanging in our masculine way too much, and we're not yinning in our feminine at all. And so you have to stop invalidating your desires with logic. You have to allow yourself to dream. Allow yourself to play. Allow yourself to do what feels good and make mistakes doing it. When you get a feeling and a desire to do something, hold that in your body and don't go out of your body and into your head and start overthinking it, because that's going to kill it. Get in the habit of allowing your desires to be the permission. Even if we look at flow state, right? I saw a video recently, and I think it was for high ticket sales, the guy was speaking about, but the most timeless things are created from a place that is not logical, from a place of faith and intuition and just feeling it, right? So he was talking about when he's on a sales call, you can tell in someone's performance when they're just thinking, okay, when the prospect says this, I'm going to say this thing, and then I'll say, like, no, that is not how you create a really strong, powerful, energetic impact. It's when you're in the feeling, in the flow, you're in alignment with the energy that you want to be in, you're in alignment with the thing that you're doing. And that's when really an unlimited resource of skill, of talent, of passion, of connection can come through you, okay? So even, I'm going to give this example. Because I know maybe some of you are trying to deprogram this kind of hustle culture. And guys, I'm a hustler. Like I love to work. I love to make money. I love to do all of that, right? And I'm a very hard worker. I always have been. But working hard from logic and working hard from alignment are two very different things. So my last point is going to be, get yourself in alignment with the stuff that really matters to you. Stop invalidating your desires because they're not logical. Because what's going to happen is, if you can follow your feelings and follow your intuition and really move towards your desires, even if they feel delusional, even if they feel like they don't make sense, and hold space for those to be real for you, even when they don't make sense, what's going to happen is your energy is going to start adjusting and familiarizing to that desire. And the more you start aligning and following that, you're going to get divine intuition, divine inspiration to take certain actions. And when you take action that is aligned with your intuition rather than forced from logic, you're going to be able to hustle, but it's not going to be hustle. It's going to be flow state. And that's how you create something that is truly timeless, that is truly original, that is going to bring and channel God's supply through you into your life. That is where you become the channel for the divine, rather than just forcing from copying and impersonating and trying to force things into existence, which is always going to give you a limited result. So let yourself play in what's delusional. Let yourself play in your intuition. Let yourself play in your desires. Let yourself make mistakes. Follow your feelings, because within that you can access flow state. And when you're in flow state, you're basically tapping into the divine. You're in the quantum realm. You're in the realm of infinite possibilities. When I switched from working in my 9-to-5 corporate job, when I switched from working in law and then in sales and then in recruitment, to doing what my soul always called me to do, to looking into human psychology, spirituality, the meaning of life, esoteric principles, religious principles, and applying them to help people get out of suffering, which I wanted to do for 6 years before. When I actually just started following that and creating from that intuitive desire, I was able to access an inner well of resources, of focus, of knowledge, of communication, stuff, imagination, vision, impact that I never even thought was in my wheelhouse. Why? Because that was me accessing the God within me. So before, when I was working in marketing, I would have to force a 12-hour workday. I would have to really hustle, and I was burnt out all the time in my masculine energy. Whereas now I can work. It doesn't feel like work, but I can work for 12, 14 hours and I don't feel the time go by. Why? Because I'm in flow. I'm in my subconscious. I'm in my God within. Time does not exist in that state. That's why you can't feel it. You're in the quantum field. You're in the sea of possibilities where there is no time. There is only timelessness. And that's how you create something timeless, and that's how you access God's supply into your life. There's actually a quote that I included here that I want to read to you. It's from Think and Grow Rich. It's from someone called Christian D. Larson. When you work simply for yourself or for your own personal gain, your mind will seldom rise above the limitations of the undeveloped personal life. But when you're inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all your thoughts break bounds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new world, a great world, a wonderful world. Dormant powers, faculties, and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a larger man by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. And that's been my experience, and I can vouch for all of my clients that have really done this inner work. They all say the same thing. It's almost like you can't believe it, but you can. It feels so right, but it's like, wow, I really can't believe that all of this was available to me this whole time. Answers, opportunities, talents, literal superpowers become available to you when you follow your intuitive desires. And you might be thinking right now, I don't know what that is. The stuff that you could do all day, the stuff that you would never get bored of. If money didn't exist, if time didn't exist, if other people's opinions didn't exist, what would you do? What could you get lost in? What did you get lost in as a child? What are you drawn to? What lights you up that when you do it, you lose track of time? That is the clue of where God is trying to channel through you in this incarnation. So follow that and let go of logic and watch how your life will literally transform. It doesn't have to be as difficult as you have been programmed to believe. It doesn't have to be so hard. You can let go of that belief. You can let go of that thought. And when you feel yourself latching on and speeding up, I know it's counterintuitive, but tell yourself to slow down. Tell yourself to go back to the things that you just love, the things that you're just drawn to. What happens when you do that is these things, your life, it gives you energy. You're not supposed to be drained all the time. You're not supposed to be hustling all the time. Yes, you're supposed to take action in your masculine energy, but it's supposed to be action to support your feminine energy, to support your desires. Your job in this life is to reflect God by reflecting the God within, by allowing that channel to flow through you. So focus on those things that light you up, that give you energy. That is your impact in this world. That is where you will be able to let God's supply flow through you and flow into your life, and you will see it manifest in money, in relationships, in opportunities, in your energy, and in everything. You just have to get over that inner opponent, that inner logic, that inner censor, and that is what Doechii learned in doing this program the Artist's Way.